If you're considering downsizing in Markham, this is a must-watch video. I'm going to go through a comprehensive list I take my clients through to make sure we avoid costly mistakes when going through the process. My name is Vas, and I'm a chartered professional accountant by training. However, I am a full-time realtor that's built and invested in real estate right here in Toronto, York region, and secondary markets. If you invest a few minutes of your time right now, I will show you how to maximize returns and reduce stress when going through a downsizing process right here in Markham. My team and I have a very comprehensive list, basically a process that we walk every single client through in terms of how to prepare for downsizing and listing their home to reduce all the unneeded stress and to show you that this is actually a very manageable process as long as you have the right team behind you. High level, in this video, I'm going to go through these 8 items. We're going to talk about renovating and remodeling, whether or not it's worth it. We're going to talk about market analysis for your particular property, especially in a market that's constantly changing. We're going to simplify the process for you so that this is a digestible process. It is not as scary as it looks. As long as you have the right people helping you, where would you go? This is the fun part. It can also be a little bit scary if you haven't thought about where would you go from your current home. We're going to talk about selling demographics and who is going to likely buy your house. We're going to talk about your furniture. Like many of us, you have probably accumulated a ton of stuff and you need to figure out what you're going to do with it, how you're going to deal with it. We're going to talk about your financial success. This is where my background as an accountant, I'm hyper focused on this to make sure that whatever you do leaves you in a really good shape financially, and we know all the numbers up front before we do anything. And lastly, we're going to talk about the order of operations, how the process works, and what you can expect. Renovating and remodeling. This can be a hotly debated topic. Here is my take on it. We're obviously looking to maximize return when we're selling. People a lot of times are under the impression that you want to be coming on the market with the most renovated and nicest home in order to get top dollar. And that is true, but it begs the question, at what cost? Meaning that if you fully renovate a home, you're limiting the amount of people that are actually going to be interested in that home. And here's why. In Markham, typically, especially if you're dealing with older lots, older homes, you have 2 types of buyers. You have those that want to move in and want to renovate it to their own desires and tastes, because as you know, renovations usually go out of style. Different trends come and go. And then the other buyer is your builder or flipper. They're going to want to buy the home, either tear it down, or they want to renovate it the way they want to add value and then flip it. By you coming on the market with an original home that's decluttered and in decent shape, that will likely yield you more money right now than taking your home, spending all the money on upgrades, and then trying to sell it. That brings me to my second point, which is partially renovated homes. They can reduce marketability, because if you're dealing with a limited budget and let's say you just renovate the bathrooms or just the kitchen, it's kind of like an unfinished job. Again, you're spending money, and I don't think the yield or the return is necessarily going to be there. I think the risk-free way approaching this is declutter, clean, address any critical issues, and list. Number 3, repairs and maintenance. When we're talking repairs and maintenance, there's cosmetic and then there's structural. This is where a realtor walkthrough is going to be required so we can assess what is important, what is not. You obviously want to show that you're selling a well-maintained home. People, especially with older properties in Markham, people want to see that it's been cared for and well-maintained. And to be honest with you, a lot of homes that I see in Markham are actually well-maintained, especially if they're by the original owners. So you want to make sure that you're coming on the market as comparable sold in the past, that they're not, in bad shape. That is not to say if your home is in bad shape or you have not been able to keep up, again, there are things that can be done to address it. And point number 4, sometimes the costs associated and the time required to be invested to renovate a house properly, where you could potentially get a little bit of a premium on the home, it may not necessarily be worth it. And to make things a little bit more challenging, right now in 2022, construction costs, trades prices, everything has gone up so much. Most people are electing not to actually renovate. When you're selling a property, you net the highest return by selling original, well-maintained, and that is taking into account that you don't have to spend any time or money to renovate. Of course, this is all location and property dependent. Some properties may require it or may get a premium if they're renovated. It comes down to location and type of property. And in Markham, we have a lot of variability between Markham Village to Newark subdivisions to subdivisions from the 70s and from the 60s, where realtor input was probably going to be required. I still believe selling as is will likely net you a higher return. Simplifying the process, and this is where I think you can rest assured there's a lot that can be outsourced and done by your team rather than you having to worry about every single little detail. And let me explain. If it's one thing we'll have a great network of painters, movers, handymen. Any service you need, we have a vetted trade source. You don't have to deal with looking or vetting, getting referrals to any of these people. We have access to them. They give us preferential treatment because we give them a lot of repeat business. When it comes to the never-ending list of things that need to be completed before you list your home, rest assured it will be taken care of by your listing agent. The key point here is number 2. We have to start the process well in advance of selling. These things can take a lot of time, and there could be a lot of things that need to be actually done. You want to engage a downsizing realtor to figure out what your financial situation looks like based on what you could get for your home once it's ready to be sold and the property you want. You want to start looking and attacking all the little small tasks now so that you're not not rushed and you're not stressed out. This gives us the ability to line up any trades we may need, make repairs to the home as needed without having to pay rush fees or dealing with not having to be able to get trades on site in a timely manner to actually address the issues with the home. Being well prepared and starting this ahead of schedule will yield dividends in the future. Where do you go? I think this should be, in theory, the funnest part of this entire process. I've seen it go both ways. Some people get stressed out, but maybe you've already given this some thought and you possibly know where you want to go. I know, living in Markham Village, for example, I know some of my older neighbors actually moved to the beaches. They wanted to be closer to the water. They wanted a more walkable lifestyle. Others decided to just downsize to condos near Markville Mall, for example, or in Unionville. This is something you have to give some thought to make sure what is it you're looking for. Are you looking to liquidate cash and maximize the amount of liquidity so that you have money on hand, whether maybe you want to help your children, or are you looking to change up your lifestyle? So something that needs some thought from your end, and then from there we can work and find out what kind of property makes sense, and I can suggest the different types of places that you would be happy in. Number two is, do you go to a condo or do you go to a smaller home? If you haven't lived in a condo, it's hands off, there's no maintenance, it's much easier, but then you have to deal with elevators, there's parking spots, there's concierge, there's security, there's different amenities. It comes down to what you want and getting familiar with the different types of things that condos actually offer for people looking to downsize. Typically a condo is going to be in a higher traffic area where you're going to have more walkability most likely, so it really comes down, are you looking for something walkable, or are you looking to downsize into a smaller home where there's less upkeep, maybe a townhouse? This is your time to explore and find out what you want and what works for you for the next stage of your life. The last consideration here that we usually make, it's, do you buy or do you rent your next home? For the most part, a personal and a financial decision. It comes down to what your goals are and how long you plan to stay in this place. Sometimes if it's short term or you're not sure and you want to try out a certain area, maybe renting makes more sense at first, but if you plan to be somewhere longer term, buying likely will make sense. Not so much from a financial perspective, although that is one point of this, but not having to deal with the landlord and potentially them telling you, hey, you have to move out because I'm selling the unit, and the other things that come with being a tenant. Selling demographics. So this is effectively reverse engineering who's going to be the buyer of your home, and then presenting your home in a way that that potential buyer is going to be most interested in the home. This will once again depend. Are you selling an older home on a big lot? Is it a smaller home on a smaller lot? Is it a bigger new home on a small lot? All of these things will vary a little bit because we're going to be targeting who is it going to be buying it. Is it going to be a family? Is it going to be a builder? What's going to be their background? What is going to be their expectation? And then from there, we work backwards whether or not we need to make certain repairs, updates, or upgrades in order to cater to the needs and wants of that particular buyer pool. Point number two is what type of buyers are going to be interested in your house. So that could be a rehabber, a builder, it could be an investor, it could be a young professional, it could be upsizing families, could be new immigrants to the country, could be somebody from Asia. That's when you would have to consider feng shui. A number of things have to be considered, but this is where we evaluate every single potential characteristic of the buyer pool, and then we work backwards from there in terms of how your property levels up for their needs. Which brings us to the point, well, how do you market to these buyers? Now, marketing real estate right here in Toronto is usually done through the MLS system. This is how things come up on Realtor.ca. However, there are a number of other mediums where you can get in front of other people that they're not necessarily always looking on Realtor.ca. You can use paid Google ads, which are very effective for people with high intent on buying. The second thing is you can go into social media, and social media is absolutely huge right now. Again, there are different avenues. There's YouTube, there's Facebook, there's TikTok, there's Instagram. You can get in front of the right people at the right time, provided you have the right social media team and you know how to create creative ads for the particular property that you're trying to market. And with every single marketing strategy, we'll have to take into account what's happening in the market, what's happening with buyer sentiment, what's happening with interest rates, and the general news in the media as we're trying to go to market. All of these put together a very comprehensive idea and a strategy on how to market the home at the point in time you're ready to sell. Let's talk about furniture and what to do with this stuff. Now, this is actually surprisingly somewhat of a stressful scenario. In a perfect world, by this point, you have figured out where you want to go, and then you go through your furniture and figure out, well, if I'm going to a condo, will the current furniture that I have work in this condo? Will it work with the layout? Will it work with the size? And then from there, you decide which pieces you want to keep, which ones you want to donate or sell, etc. A lot of times you may not even be sure what will work, and at this point, we can go and look at properties that you are considering. You can get into a space, walk the layouts, walk the bedrooms, walk the living space, and get an idea of what the space feels like, and then you can go back home and then look at your own furniture and see, you know what, would this work in this type of space or would it not work? But at least you have context because you have felt and you have walked through a potential home that you're going to have in the future. Decluttering is one of the most important things you're going to have to do before putting your home for sale. There's nothing less appealing than a cluttered home as you walk into it where the buyer can't get an idea of what the potential is. And that is because clutter makes the place feel small, and you just can't use your imagination as easily if it was nice and tidy and decluttered. So decluttering is an absolute must. However, the big thing here is over the years we accumulate so many things that we actually forget how much stuff we have, and a lot of times we'll have some sentimental attachment to certain things, not so much to others. This is where you're going to be giving away and selling furniture. One big issue here is that most people don't want old furniture, so unfortunately it's probably going to have to get thrown out. There's also storage solutions that we can take a look into so that if you're not ready to throw something out, you can put it in temporary storage and at least resolve for it that way, which still allows you to have a decluttered home for listing. The last part, this is costs associated with furnishing your new place. Now, some people get super excited about it. I know for me, I'm not a big furniture shopper. I'd rather just not think about it, but my wife, for example, loves it. This is actually a situation where even getting a consultation with an interior designer for your new place, they cost a few $100s, but they will give you an idea on colors, furniture, where to get it, different styles, different budgets, and you can actually have quite a bit of fun with it. Now, let's get into the most important part, which is the financial success of your transaction. Here, obviously, as the listing agent, I'm trying to get you the most amount of money. The great thing about Markham is that Markham, for the last few decades, has been an extremely desirable community, and a lot of people are moving here. The demand is high, and real estate prices show that. Markham offers fantastic schools, and new and young families want to live here for the community feel and for the school and education system. That being said, we have to be fully transparent and honest with ourselves when we're talking market value of a property, because the property you bring to market will differ from property to property. We have to be honest with our expectations and also understand that, for example, if the price you get for your home is not what you thought it would be, remember that you're also going to be buying a property, and if we're in a down market, for example, you're going to be getting a deal on that property as well. You always focus on the spread between what you're going to get and the property you're going to buy rather than just the absolute prices at a point in time. This is where we get into point number 2, where we create a financial plan around the selling and the downsizing of your property. If you have a mortgage, we'll go through whether it's variable or fixed, whether or not you can port it into a new property so that you don't have to pay a penalty to break it. We go over listing fees, HST, all the different things that come with selling a house so that you know what your net number in your pocket is after this entire process is done. And based on that, you can then allocate a budget on what you feel comfortable spending in the future for your new property. Last but not least is the exceptional marketing plan. We've done the heavy lifting of analyzing the market, understanding who our demographics are, who's the potential buyer of your home. And now we target all of these people, not just through MLS, but we target them through social media and direct target response buyer marketing. We leverage my own brokerage, which is one of the biggest volume brokers right here in Canada and in the world. And we get in front of the right eyeballs to get the most amount of interest and attention on the listing to ensure we get the highest possible price. Now let's get into step number 8, which is the order of operation. The first point of this is most people ask, should you sell or should you buy first? There's no clear-cut answer for this. It really depends on your situation and it depends on the market. Based on today's market, what you want to do and a framework to think about, you want to make sure that the time frame between you buying and selling is extremely short. You don't want to be in a position where you buy and then you list a month later, because it could be an entirely different market. If you bought first, you want to be ready to list immediately after buying your property. You want to eliminate the lag between both of these things as much as possible, because as you see right now, there's a lot of volatility in the market and it can change week to week. And you're trying to narrow that gap. You want to get your home ready for sale. Whether or not you buy first or sell first will depend whether or not you find the right property and how much available inventory there is of the property you want. So for example, if you're looking for a very niche and specific property, it might make sense to actually find it first, buy it, and then list. But if you're dealing with something where there's a lot of inventory, you're better off selling first to know exactly how much money you get, and then you have a lot of options to pick from. But the key here is you want to have your house ready to go immediately. And I'm going to bring up the point where you may decide you want to rent, whether it's because you want to figure out an area, get a feel for it, or maybe financially it just makes more sense for you to rent because you want to use the money for lifestyle activities or something of that nature. Whatever the case may be, at this point, you want to have made up your mind on which way you want to go so that you can proceed with the listing and have a successful sale of your home for the maximum amount of money. I hope you found this information useful. What I would do first, or my recommendation, is get educated educated. And by educated, I mean find out what is it that you're looking for yourself and in the next phase of your life. This is going to help with the type of property you're going to look for, the area you're going to want to live in, and the lifestyle you're seeking. Number two, it's a good idea to start with a realtor consultation early on. Whether you're thinking of doing this in 6 months or in 2 years, it really doesn't matter. Have a consultation, because you providing context on your life, your wants, your needs, and your goals will give an experienced realtor the idea of what recommendations to make, so that they can tell you, hey, you know, maybe living in the beaches is a good idea. Maybe living in Unionville near the pond is a great idea. Maybe you want a retirement community in Stouffville. Maybe you want a condo with a view. There's so many different options. But based on your wants, for a realtor that listens, they can make some incredible suggestions on options that you may not have considered in the past. Number three, set a timeline in place. Don't feel rushed, but at least give yourself an idea of what you're trying to accomplish and how fast you're trying to accomplish it, and whether or not that's realistic. And that will make sure that you have a smooth process ahead of you. Once you've decided on where you want to go and you have picked a realtor, at this point, it's all about execution. Now you just want to let the realtor you've picked execute with their team, where you can hand off a lot of the heavy lifting and you can just focus on the transition, and you can look forward to your new lifestyle. That just about wraps up the process. I hope you found it useful. What I suggest is, if you have any questions in particular on downsizing in Markham, where to go, things to do, or any questions you may have about the process, there's a link below. Feel free to schedule an appointment with me at your convenience. You can have a chat, and I can at least help you answer any questions you may have, or guide you in the right directions in terms of how to think about this move, and maybe alleviate some of the stress you may have as you're thinking about doing this in the future. Thank you so much, and have a great day.